Hi, and welcome to the Waukesha County Green Team's Train the Trainer event with Focus on Energy. Tonight, we're going to hear from Brady from Focus on Energy and all about the different energy saving technologies available. And then we're going to have a part two of our training, and that will cover the actual incentives available through the IRA.
My name is Brady Steigoff, and I'm the Community Liaison Manager at Focus on Energy. So I manage our relationships with local governments, community partners, and our outreach team. So we are trying to be at more events, letting people know about rebate programs. And what I'm sharing with you all is what I'm kind of calling our energy coach or energy, for different organizations, we've been training nonprofits and community groups, volunteers, on how to talk about our programs because we can't be everywhere, and we want energy efficiency to be for all. So what the two parts that Joanna and I were talking about are going to be this tonight. We'll focus on energy efficiency basics. So really, I'm going to talk about technologies and how a home acts as a system. And then next session, I'm going to talk about the nitty gritty about the rebate amounts and how you participate. So it kind of builds on itself because everything that we're going to learn about today, for the most part, has a rebate from Focus on Energy. There's some free tips and some low-hanging fruit, as we like to say, that doesn't have an incentive, but I think for you all, I'm hoping that I can train you so that you can feel confident talking about some of these resources because I think many people are seeing there's a lot of energy inflation happening right now. We're kind of in an energy crisis. And I think in Wisconsin, we feel really lucky and fortunate that we have a lot of rebates to help people make smart energy improvements that lower their bills now and protect them from inflating energy costs in the future. So that is kind of what I want to instill with you. And then you can go out in your community and tell your friends, family, and neighbors what you learned. So I think I kind of covered this. I'm going to go pretty quick. The slides can be shared afterwards, as well as the recording. So there's some things that I'm not going to be able to cover in this time frame, but nothing's a trade secret, so you can review the slides afterwards. What I am going to kind of cut out for time's sake is the Weatherization Assistance Program. I will cover it slightly, just enough so you can know it, but I'm not going to do a deep dive since I'm not an expert on it. But it is a really great program, especially for people who are on the lower end of the income spectrum and really could use some energy assistance. So that's why I can't quite omit it. If you're not familiar with Focus on Energy, or somebody says, well, who is that and how are they funded? We are utilities in Wisconsin statewide energy efficiency and renewable incentive program. So the utilities in Wisconsin fund us. There's 120 in the state, and 107 of those are either mandated by the state or have voluntarily decided to pitch in to this fund so that everybody can have this great resource that offers rebates for ways to save energy. So we help both residents and businesses with our rebate programs. We also recognize that education and information is important, especially so that you are aware of opportunities to save energy as well as know what rebates are available to you. So that's part of why people like me are able to do presentations. This has a lot of benefits. I'm going to try to not to be repetitive on this, but it promotes in-state economic development, right? We are investing in our buildings, making them more resilient, more sustainable, and that improves property values in theory compared to non-efficient buildings. It protects our environment. A lot of energy comes from fossil fuels still, even with utilities having 2030, 2050 goals to be net zero. Even if we could have, as long as we have less need for energy, we need less renewables to meet that need, and that lowers costs for everybody. And then you're seeing this in the news, and I know you guys had a session on this, but Wisconsin has, once again, a growing demand for electricity and natural gas. So our program is 25 years old, and when we were originally created, it was because energy use just kept going up. We had to keep building power plants to meet that need. And the legislature said, we can have a more efficient economy that makes do with more of what we have, rather than just keep building more power plants. So I think that's very timely in our current state of the world. In its essence, what we offer for residents, I'll focus mostly, is free energy saving packs. So people may have ordered these in the past. Every calendar year, you can order a free one. We changed that. It used to be every 3 years. And the packs change occasionally with new technologies and freebies and opportunities. So I'll cover those later. That's a great intro to Focus on Energy if somebody's never heard of us. Get a free pack, it's yours. The shipping is free. Heating and cooling, I'll cover in the next session, but that's one of the biggest things in Wisconsin's climate. We use a lot of energy to heat our homes in the winter, and then quite a bit to cool them in the summer. Insulation and air sealing is another way to make use of your equipment. So as long as, even the most efficient heating and cooling equipment, if you're leaking a lot of air to outside and heat gets in or heat escapes, you're still not that efficient. So those are you'll see in some future slides, the biggest opportunity for savings. We help certify new homes to be built 30% or more above code, all the way to net zero energy. We offer rebates for solar energy, and our rebates recently increased for that. Water heating is also a big energy user in our home, so we offer rebates for smart solutions there. And then smart thermostats. I'll cover those in a little bit about how they're different, but this is kind of set and forget a really great way to save energy. And then what I want to call out to everybody is a lot of people say, well, I'm not eligible for Focus on Energy is what I'll hear. And everybody is able to get some incentives from Focus. What I will say is if you're lower income or moderate income, we offer higher rebates because the goal of our program is usually not to cover the full cost, but to make a project happen. We recognize that at the lower income, we need to offer a higher incentive to move a project forward. What I will say is we have these federal IRA rebates that I'll cover more in the next session that have been a real, I would say, game changer for us, where we've been, especially for low income, we've been able to cover about 100% of project costs or up to. For moderate income, about half of the project costs. And that's where I say we feel really lucky in Wisconsin for the resources that we have to make these projects happen. And when we're talking about income, I wanted to have a chart to so that you can concretely understand what we're talking about. The state weatherization and energy assistance program is the lowest of low income, like I said. I'll cover those services just in brief. But our income guidelines are 80% area median income, and I pulled those for Waukesha County. And you can see they're almost, not quite double what previously the only low income program for the state was. So that's where we feel super lucky, is this is quite a few people. Like I've heard teachers, janitors, people who, you don't have to necessarily be unemployed to receive these benefits. And then this would be the moderate income tier. So that'll be included in your slides and it's included in our website, but I just wanted to show you that quite a few people qualify for higher incentives through Focus on Energy. But like I said, no one's excluded. We will offer something for everybody. Contrasting the energy assistance and low income weatherization program to our program, that is funded by both utility bills and the federal government. So you might see in your utility bill a line item that says low income assistance program. And then I mentioned the income guidelines are a little different. It's state median income and it's lower. The way this program works is if somebody is struggling to pay their bills, this provides immediate bill pay assistance when they apply and they verify their income so that they can get on their feet and they're not shut off by the utility. Then, and this is, I think, one of the most brilliant designed government programs, if the government is helping pay for your utility bill, they also want you to lower your bills so that either you can afford it or the government has to pay less for energy waste and can pay more of your bill for your efficient usage. So weatherization can provide free insulation, air sealing in your attic walls, furnace replacement and repair, appliance replacement, water saving measures. The fact that it is free is why I can't omit it from these slides. I think it's one of the best resources for people who are really struggling. Focus on Energy traditionally has not been a low income program. It's for everybody else. And so usually you have to pay something out of pocket to participate in our programs. The only real difference that I mentioned is with the federal rebates that you can take advantage of on top of Focus on Energy. Now we're actually able to offer very similar services to people who were previously not eligible for weatherization, but at no cost to low income households. Definitely going to be important before this winter, I think, although summer heating season could be kind of wicked this year, so who knows. This is just a sampling of what's in our energy packs. So things that save water, or this is pipe insulation to make sure you get hot water faster and you don't waste as much water, as well as the energy used to heat it. Power switches to stop vampire energy or things that are drawing power from the wall, even when you're not using them. And then this one has a lot of insulation in the family room pack. So this would be a good one to order before fall. It's got weather stripping. This is some more weather stripping and door sweeps, plastic for your windows, and then these are insulated outlet covers, which especially in an older home, these are often uninsulated and quite a bit of air leaks through them. And then light bulbs, because everybody loves light bulbs. So the next few slides, I'm going to talk a little bit about how the home works as a system, and then I want to cover some of the typical equipment that Focus will offer rebates for and why they are efficient or what to look for in those equipment. A little bit of the stats. Like I said, our grid is getting cleaner, but historically, it's been one of the dirtiest in the country. And so while a lot more renewables are coming online, you'll see those on your bill, right? As the utility invests in renewables, we'll all recover that rates, and hopefully it keeps rates low in the future. But there is that upfront investment, just like if you invest in solar or wind for your home. We do consume more energy than we produce as a state, and most of the energy that we produce is ethanol. So anytime we're saving energy, we're keeping local dollars in our state, and that's where some of that in-state economic development that I mentioned before comes into play. And then I like this slide of the 20% of energy used in the state is in the residential sector, because a lot of people say, well, it's Amazon, it's Google, it's Microsoft, it's these big giant companies, which I know data centers are a little different, but it just shows that residents collectively are quite a big part of Wisconsin's historic energy use, which means there's an opportunity for impact. I know this is from 2024, so rates have gone up a little bit, but I wanted to give one idea of what an average electric bill in Wisconsin looks like. Your home's age and its efficiency are going to be the biggest indicators of what this bill will be. But generally, if you're on budget bill, it's going to look like about $200 a month. If you're not on budget bill, it's going to swing dramatically, right? In the summer, you're going to have high electric, and in the winter, you're going to have high gas. But this averages to 658 kilowatt hours of electricity per month, averaged. And you'll see that that's quite a bit more expensive than natural gas, but it's in around the 110 to 120 a month. On natural gas, it's a little cheaper, but on average, it's between $70 to $80 a month, and then 72 therms. So in the winter, like I said, that's going to be much higher. But this is one of the indicators of when people are like, I'm not sure if my home is efficient or not, or if I should invest in home energy projects. This can be one benchmark. So if you're quite a bit, removed from the average, it could mean something's going on in your home, and maybe an energy assessment by a professional would be a worthwhile investment. Typically, I can tell you where energy gets used in a home, and it's not where you think. I mean, I love to turn off lights and unplug things, but a lot of it, more than half, is in the heating and cooling. So I have it broken down by the types of homes. And so I'm going to focus mostly on single family, but a lot of this is for space heating. I think air conditioning has gone up since this date. This was the most recent government federal data that I could find, and it is national. I think in Wisconsin, our heating would be even higher, and I think our cooling now is starting to grow, but it used to be historically below average. Water heating, it always surprises me that this is about 20% of your home's energy use. And then the lighting and other things are quite a bit smaller, and other appliances that are not refrigeration add up quite a bit too. Your dryer uses a significant amount of energy, as does your oven. And an inefficient dishwasher can use quite a bit more water and energy for heating as well. So this is important, because when you want to think about ways to save insulation, like sealing your home, making it tight and not lose air to the environment, is going to be really important. And then upgrading heating and cooling equipment to be efficient, then water heater. And in an ideal world, you would go in that order for the biggest impact. I'll talk a little bit later about how life is not linear, right? We want to replace things before they fail, and the oldest thing first. But that would be our general advice otherwise. I love this analogy because I love wool. My family's very British. So insulation is like your wool sweater. Air sealing is like that windbreaker. So if you've ever worn wool, when you step outside and it's windy, it goes right through it. But a windbreaker obviously can protect you from that wind. So combined, they can keep you really reasonably warm, even though they're not, a giant puffy down coat. A giant puffy down coat is going to be exactly the same. It's got a windbreaking layer, and then it also has down as insulation. So we don't think about our homes like our winter outerwear, but um, the other example, maybe for Wisconsin in the summer, is if you're drinking an ice cold beverage of your choice in the summer, a koozie is going to help keep it cold as well. So in the summer, when you're cooling your house, it's really important. Insulation also plays a big role then in keeping you comfortable. Um, this is a very similar slide, but if you're like me, a pie chart is a little easier than a bar chart. So like I said, Wisconsin's heating from the stats I could find is more like 50 to 55%. We are getting warmer, right? So I think space cooling is increasing a lot more. Um, but generally, my recommendations stay the same. Um, a lot of this is a little bit redundant, so I'll try to highlight some of the things that I didn't mention. I think the thing that everybody can agree on is people want to save money, right? And saving energy always saves money. I did want to mention there's kind of two ways that happens. And so you have the immediate bill savings because you're using less, but then when prices increase, you are using less, so you don't feel the increase as much. And a really good example is if you have, and this used to be hypothetical, and now gas prices are 460. So I used to say if you take a truck versus a hybrid car, both get you from point A to point B. But when gas is 250, obviously the hybrid is probably you're only going to pay say $30 per like to fill up versus the truck might be 60. Now with gas prices what they are, the hybrid might pay 45, but the truck is paying 100. So not only was the hybrid always paying less, but that truck is now paying even more when the prices increase. And so that's people don't always factor that in, but I just was talking to the city of Green Bay, and they were saying that they've invested a lot in energy efficiency for their city buildings. And they said, even though they've tracked the price inflation of energy, their bills have not increased as much as inflation because they've invested in efficiency. So I thought that was really, really cool and a good example. The other things that I love is like Focus on Energy, for example, I've heard has reduced the need for 2 additional large natural gas plants for the state with the amount of electricity that we've saved. We support a local workforce of contractors throughout the state to do this work, to invest in our buildings. It improves the quality of our housing, and then it also improves indoor air quality and health. Anytime you're not, combusting a fuel or you're ventilating really well in your home, you're filtering that air, you're bringing in cleaner air that's filtered, and you're keeping out outdoor air that might have pollen and pollution. So that can improve our health and improve our lifespan as well. I'm going to go pretty quick through terms to know. I think the big thing that I want to mention is sometimes people confuse conservation and efficiency. As in the industry that I'm in, I love both and I grew up doing both. But conservation is doing less and using less. An example is growing up, I didn't have a lot of money growing up, so we would turn off lights. And my dad, when we were cold, my dad would say, well, put on a sweater, do jumping jacks, or have a cup of tea before we turn on up the thermostat. That was all conservation. Efficiency is doing the same or more with less. So an example is LED lights. At times we need lights. So LEDs use a fraction of the energy that fluorescence and incandescents use in particular. Another example is you can actually have 2 homes, both set, one could be set at 62 degrees in the winter and the other could be set at 72. If the 72-degree home is efficient, they might be still using less energy than the person who is probably very cold in their house at 62. So what I like about this is efficiency is all about you don't have to sacrifice comfort for energy savings. And if you do both, you save even more. Not everybody is willing to be as cold as I am in the winter, so I've learned that. I'm going to skip through these, but generally we're saving kilowatts or kilowatt hours when we're saving electricity and therms when we're saving gas. Sometimes when we electrify things like our heating systems or water heaters, we'll switch to British thermal units to compare apples to apples. That's a little bit in the weeds, and you can review these slides, so I don't want to spend too much time on it. This might be important though. So I'm trying not to say HVAC. If I do, I mean heating, ventilation, and air conditioning. So that is, one of the biggest energy users combined in your home. If somebody ever says a home energy retrofit, I call that a home energy makeover. They're like doing a bunch of energy projects to make your home more efficient. Set point is what you set your thermostat to. So when we get to conservation, that's really important, as well as smart thermostats kind of adjust the set point automatically to help you save. And then sometimes we call this plug load. I like vampire energy. It's things that are plugged into the wall that can still use energy even when you're not using them. And I'll talk about those a little bit later. Again, you'll get these slides, but I think these are really important, especially if you're talking to renters or seniors. One of the top things we've heard from Focus on Energy is people want free and no cost tips. What can I do today to get me started on lowering my bills? So these may not be the most impactful, but added together, some of these behaviors and conservation tips can add up. I have this study cited that they add up to about 16 to 20% of your energy use can be controlled by behaviors alone. The rest is really how efficient you're being. Get your free energy saving pack. That's again, my absolute takeaway. Turning off lights when you're not in a room, that one's pretty no-brainer. This is where couples fight, and I sometimes get odd looks, but you can set your thermostat in the winter down to, we say, at least 68 or lower, especially when you're sleeping. If you can set it back for 8 hours, or if you're away for 8 hours a day, set it back. Honestly, you can go down to 60 safely in your home, and you don't have the risk of pipes bursting as long as you're well insulated. And that can really save a lot. We estimate about 1% for every degree you change your thermostat for 8 hours. In the summer, I know 78 also seems crazy. I get a lot of looks about this one as well. I will say, as long as you're dehumidifying your space, and the air conditioner will do that first before it can cool, fans will really keep you cool, and fans use literally a fraction. I mean, an air conditioner in your central air is probably the equivalent of more than 30 fans running. So fans do cool people, not a room. So if you leave the room, turn off the fan. That's my advice. But generally, it's almost like limbo. In the summer, it's how high can you go? And in the winter, it's how low can you go? Power strips are things that you can easily flip the switch, will really help lower that energy, vampire energy. I hate unplugging things, so I'm lazy. So I like this power strips a lot. Caulk is really inexpensive at a hardware store, but I will let you know on our website, you can get it for $2. So Focus on Energy is providing a discount to you. Shipping is free. Weather strip on doors, especially in the winter, but keep out that either hot air in the summer or cold air in the winter. Shades can really be your friend. So especially south facing in the winter, let in that heat and that light. And then in the summer, you actually want to block that. So especially in the afternoon, I really like natural light. So this one's hard for me to block out the sun, and I love houseplants, but really, especially in that afternoon is all you need to do. Especially in the summer, we get so much light. Often plants do pretty well the other times of the day. And then cooking outside, who doesn't love that tip? The other thing I'll say when I talk about induction stoves is they don't create much heat, so it makes you a lot more comfortable to cook indoors in the summer. This, I think, is one of my more important slides. Is just a lot of people are going to ask you, like, do I really need to do a home energy project, even if there's money out there? And so there's a few ways that I wanted to share that you can tell both qualitatively and quantitatively that your home is efficient, or somebody should kind of investigate and look into opportunities. So the feels like, or qualitative, is, does your home feel drafty? Do you have rooms that you're not comfortable in? Are there different temperatures all throughout the house? This is what OSHA says people should be comfortable at in a work environment. If you're not feeling comfortable in that temperature, you probably have a lot of drafts that are making you feel colder than it actually is. And that probably means energy is being wasted. If you haven't done anything in about 10 plus years, probably you could use the home energy, like an upgrade of some type of your equipment. A lot of people like to wait until their equipment fails, but you're probably paying in your energy bills. And there's two types of waste that you can think of. Obviously, if the equipment isn't broken, you could say it's wasteful to replace it early. But I want you to also shift your thinking of like you're burning a gas and a fuel more than you need to do the same function. Or like an LED light, for example, is often burning coal at a power plant that isn't needed, right? We could use LEDs use 1/6 of the energy as an incandescent bulb. We're wasting a lot of energy in our grid and our system to keep that bulb lit compared to an LED. So there's two ways to think about waste, and I'm more in favor of proactively changing so that you get to choose the more efficient option. You're not at the mercy of what a contractor has or what you can get, because it's usually an emergency if it goes out. And then ice dams in the winter, this is my favorite, and it was a really good year for this. If you're having ice dams, which is when ice and icicles form at the edge of your roof, not only is this ice going up through your shingles and possibly causing moisture in your roof, and that causes rot and mold, but it's a sign that energy is leaving your attic at an uneven rate, melting snow and freezing and thawing, which is exactly how potholes happen. And so you can imagine what that will do to your roof. It's often a good sign that you need insulation. A well-insulated house, you'll see snow on the roof for days after a snow event. So for the scientists who really like the numbers, like I said, bills, around 200. I shouldn't say necessarily, an efficient home would be below that, but obviously if you're around maybe 150 to 250, I would feel pretty good about yourself. If you're more at the 300, 400, even I hear 600 a month in the winter, there's real signs that something's going up on in your home. And that an energy assessment would probably help you. On our website, we do have a free tool that's not as good as a professional, but it's free. It takes like 10 minutes. You go around your house, you plug in some details like how old's your furnace, what's the efficiency, if you know your insulation. It'll try to give you the best advice and recommendations in the modeling software based on what you plug in. A professional can cost you around $500. I think it's gone up with labor costs, but if for low income households, we do offer discounts up to $500, and that often covers it. What I will say is it makes you eligible for, thousands and thousands of dollars of focus and IRA incentives. So when you think about a dollar in and a dollar out, this is a really smart investment in your home and your health and your safety. They do safety checks around your house. And then the fact that it unlocks thousands of dollars, you will never regret that $500 or so that you spend on that energy assessment. And then, like I said, we partner with 107 utilities. So I would be crazy if I memorized them all, but a lot of the utilities have online portals where you can log in and it compares you to neighbors. Does anybody know, does We Energies offer that, like kind of compares you to neighbors? People don't know. I know so many people go on budget bill and then you never check the portal, but I know my utility MG&E does, and I know quite a few of the utilities, so it might be worth checking out again. I think that comparison to neighbor gives you a good judge. And sometimes you can also type in the square footage of your home to give you a kind of compared to similar sized homes too. All right, I'm going to breeze through some of the efficient equipment 101. This is what I have covered, and I do have some of the bold things highlighted where we offer rebates for them. I mentioned insulation. There's several different types. Some of the benefits that I didn't cover are also, noise. So if you live on a busy street or you have air traffic, it can also dampen that. But otherwise, this is one of the biggest and quickest paybacks for your home and really adds a lot of resiliency. So if the power ever goes out, even if you have a natural gas furnace, you're not going to have heat. A well-insulated home should stay warm for many hours, if not sometimes days. A net zero or passive home, for example, uses insulation to stay warm almost throughout the year and hardly use air conditioning. Insulation is very, very important. This shows the air sealing and how they kind of combine. Essentially, your home acts like a straw or like a chimney. It's often called the chimney effect. So if air is escaping because you don't have insulation, air must come in, right? Just like a straw. If you suck through it, it needs to go somewhere. So where is air coming in the winter? It's coming in from the basement and the cold frozen ground. So you're taking in very cold air, then you're heating it, and a lot of it is literally flying out the roof. Um, in the summer, you just kind of bake and swelter with the sun beating down. So when you combine these, insulation and air sealing has really big energy savings. Boilers, I think all I'm going to really mention is you want to look in the 90 to 98.5% efficiency. And that's what this means. Boilers can be very efficient, gas boilers. Electric options exist, but because electricity is so expensive and they're not quite 100%, or they go up to 100% efficiency, this makes them a lot less economical. When I talk about heat pumps, I'll talk a little bit about how that high electricity cost plays into it. But since these aren't that efficient compared to a heat pump, it's not economic to go electric this route. Oh, so here's my slide on heat pumps. Heat pumps will sound like magic when I explain how they work, but I promise you they're not that complicated. They pump heat, and that's why they're called that. They can heat and cool, so they work in reverse. They use a compressor, just like your refrigerator. So your refrigerator is a heat pump, so is an air conditioner. Typically, when we're talking about heat pumps for heating and cooling your home or water heating, we're talking a little bit different, and they're higher efficiency. Basically, they're moving heat and concentrating it. So your refrigerator works, it's pumping out the heat from the box and moving that into your house. Or your air conditioner is pumping out heat into the environment and making the ambient air outside hotter so that you can be cooler inside. A heat pump can work in reverse, even at minus 15 to even now minus 20 degrees Fahrenheit, at pumping heat into your home and concentrating it. They work really well in temperatures around 45 and above. They're much more efficient than an air conditioner, and they provide really energy efficient heating. As it gets colder, it obviously gets harder and harder to concentrate that heat. The more insulation you have, the easier it is for that to work. But that's where you'll start to see efficiency drop, and electricity prices, especially in Wisconsin, are much more expensive than natural gas. That is a little bit of where you're going to see different cost scenarios. So they don't always save money. They save money mostly at 45 degrees or above on natural gas. So mild winters or spring, fall days, they're very efficient. I think for cost reasons, we recommend keeping your gas furnace for backup. You can work with the contractor to kind of balance carbon goals, energy savings, or financial savings. They can also be used to heat water. So it's going to concentrate the heat in your basement into the water heater tank. The benefit of this is they will also dehumidify your basement, just like a dehumidifier is also a heat pump, or a compressor at least. And then they can also be used as a clothes dryer. So they will concentrate heat, warm your clothes, and that makes them a lot more efficient than a gas dryer, or especially than an electric dryer. And I mentioned they can be connected. I like to call it hybrid. So if you think of a hybrid car, you can slam on the gas and get really fast acceleration on highway. And you get that same benefit of like the long range, for example. For your home, you can have a natural gas furnace for the really cold days when you need that like reliability and cheaper gas. But on all the other days, you're saving passively with a heat pump. Of course, if you have solar, the whole calculation changes a little bit, and you might want to use more and have your heat pump heat your home at a lower degree, maybe all the way down to 5 degrees Fahrenheit, because you're producing some of your own energy. So electricity is a lot cheaper for somebody who has solar compared to somebody who does not. This is a graphic of how they work, so I won't cover it just for time, but it's in the slides. These are some different configurations. So this is what the units look like. You're going to start seeing a lot more in Wisconsin. I see a lot more as I drive around the state. Often I see these at hotels and bars, just because bars often have a lot of humidity problems. You can put ductless systems. So if you don't have ductwork, or even if you do and you have some areas of your house that need additional heat or additional cooling, you could put these mini split heads anywhere, and each one can be a different temperature, which sometimes if you and the spouse disagree can be a good thing. But if you do have duct work, it'll just take advantage of your like forced air. You already could take advantage of that. This is also a really good option if you have radiators, but you want air conditioning, you can install these in different rooms to get extra comfort. Ground source heat pumps work identical, but they're just not sourcing the energy from the air, which can fluctuate a lot in Wisconsin, as we mentioned. They are sourcing it from the ground, which is about 50 degrees year round in Wisconsin. Sometimes they'll also use a pond. Basically, in the summer, they're storing heat from your house and storing it underground. And then in the winter, they're taking that stored heat and they're pumping it back in your house. So these are the most efficient, but very costly. I've heard quotes in the $40,000 to $50,000 range. I will say their return on investment, if you're living in your home or the improved value of your home, if you're willing to have a longer payback, this is the most efficient system you can do. For reliability, I think there's a lot of amazing reasons to go this route. I think it's so cool. It's just the upfront cost is huge, right? So that's usually why you don't see this being more common. I know there's some innovative solutions out there, but for now, this is sort of what we've seen. I think I'm going to skip a little bit some of the signs. It's time to upgrade your water heater and talk more about the types. So there's electric and gas, but within that, there's some different categories. Tankless are awesome because they're not using energy when you're not using hot water. So only when you run the dishwasher or shower or sink will they actually turn on. Indirect is kind of rare, but if you have a boiler, the boiler is not actually heating your hot water. So you can get an indirect water heater that'll take the waste heat from your boiler and heat up your water for very low energy. And then heat pumps, I kind of covered this, but these are very energy efficient. Even with the higher cost of electricity, switching to an electric heat pump typically has some bill savings or at least net neutral, but you get that dehumidification, which I can tell you a dehumidifier uses a ton of energy, and you'll definitely see that in your bill in the summer for Wisconsin. I think you can also get some that are hybrids as well. So you can use natural gas for when you use a ton of hot water. And the heat pump does take a little bit longer to heat that water. So what you will notice is in your basement, if you have enough space for a heat pump, that is a constraint. So you need to have some space in your basement, enough air for it to concentrate. The temperature might drop 5 degrees if you're using a lot of hot water, like several people are showering, but generally you won't notice too much comfort difference. Kind of talk about windows. Windows don't save as much as people think. Generally, insulation and the area around the windows and where the window is installed is a bigger source of air leakage than a window. Even the most efficient window is essentially a hole in the wall. And there's only so efficient that you can get with a hole in the wall. Although they're beautiful, they improve quality of life. You get to watch the wildlife outside. What I will say is if you're considering window upgrades, make sure you've done the insulation and air sealing first. And I will say soon, Focus on Energy will have small rebates for if you're replacing single and double pane windows. It is modest because we really want to steer you towards the insulation and air sealing. Smart thermostats, I'm showing you Focus on Energy rebates are usually $50 to $75. I'll let you know too, I'm almost towards the end of the slides too, so we'll have plenty of time for questions. Usually what I want to say is a lot of people say I have a programmable thermostat. No, thank you. I don't need that. And programmable thermostats are great, especially compared to the ones that you can't program. But I know like life can be busy. Often I will forget to change my settings in my thermostat. You program your thermostat for what 80 to 75% of your life is. That other 25%, you're at the cabin, you're going out, enjoying your life. If you have a smart thermostat, it's saving you energy 100% of the time. We estimate they save at least $100 a year. They even give you analytics of how much energy and money they're saving you often, and you can kind of give them some settings like I want to save more, I want to be more aggressive, or I want to, focus on comfort a little bit more. Um, but I think they're amazing for these reasons. They can be quite cheap, and sometimes we have sales from the manufacturers to bring them down even lower. Um, so pretty significant energy savings. One myth I will dispel that I hear a lot is it takes more energy if you set the thermostat back to then re-get back to the temperature, whether that's a furnace or an air conditioner. And that is not how air conditioner units or furnaces work. So just like if it's a hot summer day, you're gone at the cabin. If you turn it to 62 to get it colder, you don't get colder faster. Your air conditioner is working as hard as it can to get to the temperature that you want it at. So you're wasting more energy by setting it super low. Or in the winter, you're freezing, you just were out cross country skiing at Tenny Lapham Peak, for example. If you set the thermostat to 80, you're not going to get warmer any faster, right? The furnace is going to blast. It's going to be the same temperature no matter what. Now, however, your furnace is going to try really, really hard to get to 80 degrees or whatever you set it to. A heat pump does work a little different. They work best set at one temperature that you set and forget. It's just the way that the compressor cycle works. They are a little different, and I know that's a behavior change thing, but I just wanted to call that out because that is like one of the biggest myths of traditional heating and cooling systems that I hear. I think induction is so cool, but we'll see what you guys think. It's not the same as electric. I want you to know that. It's powered by electricity, but it actually works the same way if you wirelessly charge your phone. That's using induction technology. It's magnet is what it basically is using. Um, so it creates a magnetic current, and that heats the pot directly. So your cookware does matter. If you can stick a magnet to it, it will work on an induction stove. They are 90% efficient, so there hardly any of the energy is being wasted when you're cooking. That makes them exceptionally fast at boiling water, like a whole pot in 5 minutes or less. Electric ranges are also very efficient because you have a direct coil on the pot. Um, versus gas ranges, I know many people like them because of you can easily change the temperature. They're only about 40% efficient since combustion is never that efficient as an energy source. Most of it is escaping around the pot and heating the air around it. The other thing I will say about induction is, maybe I'm blanking. They're very easy to clean since there's like not a coil. That was what it was. You do get the same temperature control that you get with natural gas. So it's instantly cool, instantly hot because it's not electric resistance is basically creating a giant hot pad. This is heating the pot, not the actual surface. There's reduced indoor air pollution compared to natural gas. There's been a lot of studies now that especially childhood asthma cases are increasingly linked to a gas stove, and your gas stove is the only thing that is not required by law to vent outside, which tells you a little bit about combustion in the house. If you did have really good ventilation that vents outside, technically you could have that same air quality, but you won't have a cooler kitchen. The only thing that I will say is if you have a pacemaker, since it's a magnetic wave, they recommend being, I think, 5 or 6 feet away from an induction stove. So you wouldn't be able to use one if you have a pacemaker. It's my public health degree coming in. I'm going to try to wrap up really quick because I got a little bit long-winded, but people confuse this energy guide. Whenever you're buying an appliance, I think this is one of the top, again, a myth that I hear a lot. This does not mean it's energy efficient. This tells you how efficient something is. This Energy Star label is what tells you that it is energy efficient. So that means 25% or more efficient than the standard appliance. So if you look at this energy guide, this is actually like average, if not slightly on the inefficient side. Whatever this appliance is, it goes all the way down to $57 per year in annual energy costs. So that would be a more efficient option than this one. Often you'll pay more for efficiency, but over the lifetime of the product, you're definitely going to save and make that money back. I'm going to skip this because I kind of covered it, kind of covered LEDs. If life was linear, which it absolutely is not, my life has taught me anything about that. This would be what we recommend based on energy savings and how easy things can be. So we would start with the free space, which I'm going to call our free energy saving packs that get you started. LED lights, because you don't need to be a genius to screw in a light bulb. Smart thermostats, again, just because they can make use of your existing equipment and really help you save. When you're reducing water use, like I said, 20% of your energy is being used for hot water. So especially if you can wash your hands or clothes or laundry, things like that on cold, that's going to reduce quite a bit of energy. I often also like the washing machine or the dishwasher, excuse me, I often will not, I'll use air dry instead of heat dry. That saves a lot of energy. The next thing I would recommend is an energy assessment, just because I can give you these general tips, but an energy assessment gives you, your home, a concrete description of how much energy you could save, how fast the paybacks would be, and the incentives that Focus can give you. So it's really a customized roadmap to your home, which would let you know if you need insulation and air sealing. Sometimes your ductwork will be leaky, especially if it's older. And that means your furnace or whatever heating system and cooling system you have has to work harder because in your vents, you're leaking it through till it gets to the register. Heating and cooling, I mentioned HVAC is a big energy savings. Then I'd work on your water heater, then appliances, then solar. The reason I normally recommend this route is because the less energy you're using, the less panels you need to meet all or most of your energy needs. Solar is really one of the most expensive energy projects you can do. I love it. It makes me literally happy every time. I literally count the panels when I'm driving. They make me so positive and happy. But generally, if you can do efficiency first for cost reasons, we would recommend that. But sometimes you get solar, then you get your energy data, and you get like live, every 15-minute data, and it makes you want to save energy more and make more use of that energy. So that's why I say life is not linear. Um, so life happens. Honestly, I think we could meet most of our carbon goals if before something failed, you replace the next thing with a high efficiency electric option. That makes it a lot less scary than changing your whole entire house tomorrow. I think if we all did that, we'd make a lot of progress on our climate goals. And